I don't know, brow length or, you know, ratio of lip to chin. And I don't know. I try to avoid that stuff because that's.
Do you mean the red pill, blue pill,
Yeah.
chads, and
A black pill, and it's over if you've not got like, I don't know, 3.5 centimeter ears with, you know, half centimeter earlobes, approximately 80-degree angle. I mean, come on, guys.
I mean, look at me. Look at the size of my ears. Might not show because they're tucked in. Yeah, they're tucked in because of the headphones. But I've got some really big ears, and I'm bald. And honestly, the day I shaved my head, I've never had more female attention in my life. Okay, sorted, and we're live.
Good stuff.
Little Joe Rogan intro. I really like your setup. I was going to do that with some blue sponges behind me, but I just went for the canvas art there. It's a king card with my company logo on, but I prefer yours. It looks really good. I look like I've been kidnapped.
Yeah, it's an easy way to get a sort of clean looking area. Otherwise, yeah, it's really open in here. The sound's not very good either. It's a good, an easy way to do it.
Yeah, it looks good. Looks a lot better than mine. I need to improve mine. I need to throw some things in.
I could do with a backlight, really. That would improve it even more, but hey-ho, we're not.
I actually have one here. I just don't use it for podcasts because, as you can see, like on my last podcast, my face was really red, and I was like, I think I've just got strobe lights above my head, and it just, you know, I think it's providing too much light, if anything.
Yeah.
Especially with the bald head. I think it would just sheen off too much.
I've got a big light up there. It can get a bit Joe Rogan-esque, but it's all good.
That's the best part of the Joe Rogan podcast, to be honest.
Yeah, when he talks about that, they're the comments, right? It's so funny when they're like, especially if he's got a woman on his podcast or something, and he's got a really shiny head. They're like, oh, I see Joe put on some extra shine for today's guest. Yeah.
Why do you think people actually do that?
Yeah, man. There's people that do genuinely enjoy having the shiny head. You know, I don't know if that's like
for any benefit or
I don't know. I just think that's like the ultimate, like really enjoy it, like putting the bald head on display. You know, it's like they call it the chrome dome, don't they? And that's like, you know, really shining it up, ready to get out there. It could be that. It could be like obviously when you put sun cream on it and stuff like that, it gives it a bit of extra shine. But yeah, there's actually I'll link you later if I find it. There's a good video on YouTube. It's quite old now. It's like 7 years old, but it's like how to it's very stereotypical, but it's like how to be a bald guy or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's this guy, he's like Hawaiian shirt and he's there in the mirror and he's like shining up the head, sunglasses on. It's good.
That's hilarious. I always get the guests to kind of introduce themselves. Maybe that's a bit lazy. Maybe I should change that in the future. But I just think, you know yourself best. And I don't want to do an introduction that doesn't really match who you are. And then you've got a whole new audience, you know, looking at you and you're thinking, Chris, that's completely wrong.
I'll do my best. Just jump into it, shall I?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, guys. Cool. So, guys, I'm Harry. That we're also in the UK for the last 2.5 years. Pretty much dedicated all my spare time to the sort of, I guess it's community Baldcafe. We can touch on where the sort of name came from later, maybe. But yeah, you know, started off on YouTube, Instagram, slowly working on the website and the blog. But I think that word community best describes it. You know, I started off sharing my story about losing my hair and the various struggles that come with that and what I did to kind of move past it and move on to bigger and better things. And it's grown into, you know, from tips on different razors and how to do all those things to other people sharing their stories. And I often say, like, we just have the conversation around going bald as a man. You know, we have that conversation and that encourages other people to kind of do the same thing, because it's something that a lot of guys don't want to talk about, you know, and they don't want to kind of address or admit to it or however you want to describe that. So a lot of the content and stuff that is on the channel is people sharing their stories. Yeah. And it's even developed into people sharing the moment that they're kind of taking the leap, shaving off their hair. There's some of the best videos on the channel.
Yeah, they are.
Of course, I'm so thankful to all the guys that get involved. But they say, you know, you sharing your story or this guy shared his in it, you know, really helped me, and I want to do the same. And it's grown from there. The channel's doing really well, and yeah, it's just taken off, and we're still going 2.5 years on.
It's brilliant. I found your content a few months ago. Went through. I'd already gone through the plunge by then, but I thought this would have been fantastic. Had I had found this a few months ago, this would have really helped me. So it was great. It's really funny how, they say kind of people who have like a mutual hatred or something kind of bond together. They become better friends. It's like
misery loves company.
Exactly. We all kind of became so miserable about our hair falling out that I find when you do meet a bald guy, it's almost like a mutual respect.
Oh, 100%.
Do you know what I mean? So when you've got, like you said, the community, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, the nod in the street.
Yeah.
We've all been, this is the thing. This is actually something that disappoints me because there's this massive divide you'll see if we talk about YouTube specifically. So that's sort of the main platform at the moment, and then all the comment section, and there's a few different YouTubers. I'm not sure how sort of versed you are in the hair loss community on YouTube, but there's obviously two sides of the coin, right? You got the side that wants to do anything and everything they can to keep it, right, to hold on to the hair. So they talk about those things for transplants and whatnot. And you kind of got this other side, the bold acceptance, if you want, if how they would probably describe it, right? And there's a massive divide, right? There's a massive divide, like, no, what are you doing? One side thinks the other. Although this isn't true, right? It seems as though the side who is very much focused on stopping it, preventing it, and keeping their hair is very extremely negative towards guys that are choosing to kind of accept this and rock a shaved head, very negative. Whereas, apart from a few, of course, a lot of the guys who have chosen this route to kind of, shave it off and move on, again, the keeping it side would call it the just shave it bro crew. Of actually the complete opposite, like really supportive because they appreciate the struggle, and they've likely been at some point in that struggle. Maybe, they just did a bit of the shampoos or they did a bit of the, the Rogaine and the shampoos or whatever. So they understand it, they get it. And one thing that, that disappoints me is that divide because it's like we're all dealing with the same thing. We've also got different opinions on how it should be dealt with ultimately. But hey, just like take a step back and appreciate like this guy that you're hating on online or whatever in the comment section is going through the exact same thing that you are, So have a bit of humility. And that's, just one thing I noticed about the comment section. And I always try to, it's a bit, I don't know if you follow Gary V.
I do, yeah.
Right. And he's big on empathy, right?
Yeah.
And I recognized early on that with my content, I never bash that side of things. I never hate on them. I never, my videos aren't titled like 5 reasons why you absolutely must never get a hair transplant because I don't need to put that down to build what I kind of promote up. I don't need to do that because I think the people's stories and all that, the results and how people carry themselves after they've accepted the whole hair loss thing speaks for itself. I don't need to, like I said, disguise that by bashing the other side of the story. And so when I get hate comments and stuff like that, which, comes with the territory on YouTube,
especially YouTube,
I always try my very best to respond with a bit of kindness because you never know, if I just like snap back at them, that's it, they're shut off and they never listen to anything I say again, or they join the instant dislike crew.
I've got a funny story about that actually before I forget. Back in the day, some guy was going crazy, like when it was MSI College beforehand, the business I told you about, some guy went crazy at me. So I was really young, I was like 21, 22. I kind of, like you said, snapped back and said something to him. About 2 days later, he gets back. He's like, look, sorry, bro. He was like, I was in a real bad place. I was just fuming and I projected that onto you. And he was like, I actually love your content. I follow it every single day. I think you're great. And I was like, fuck, why did I do that? And then got onto Gary V, etc. And ever since then, like people try, it's the same comments as before. Like I get the same shit. Like you talk too much. I'm like, it's a podcast. Like that's literally what I'm supposed to be here to do. And then I'm like, okay, appreciated. This is what I'll say now. Okay, like appreciated. Everyone's got their opinion. I'm like, but is everything okay with you? Because I'm like, from experience, anybody who's ever said this to me has then gone, actually, I'm dealing with some shit. I'm like, so if you want to, join the community and get involved, we'd be happy to have you. I always say stuff like, if you've got that much passion, to project onto me, then you must have a lot of male aggression, testosterone, etc. Why don't you convert that into success? I can help you with that, and they usually get back and subscribe, and you're like, nah, nothing's personal. It's just how you perceive it, right?
Exactly that. We've all been there, and different emotions get kicked up by different things and whatnot. And yeah, like you said, you were perfectly projecting it, in a negative light onto something. So yeah, just to round off there, I always just try to respond with a bit of kindness, because you never know, they might watch another 10 videos and something will click in that one, and that will genuinely help them, and it's only then they might come back and say, oh, you know what, like back then, I was just really unhappy with the situation. Luckily you kind of you cut me a bit of slack on that one, and I'm still here, and they benefit from it. So with my content, I've always kind of stayed true to that. And I think it's part of the reason why it has reached a lot of people and been received generally quite well.
Your content's so authentic, and you can't lose that. Like you're exactly like me. You're not here to tell people what they want to hear. You're there to tell them what they need to know. And that's exactly how I pride myself. And somebody arrives on your channel, they're losing their hair, and they're like, oh, Baldcafe, okay, this guy's going to help me get it back. And you're like, embrace it, shave it off. That's not what they want to hear. They'd much rather hear, here's the 10 things you can do that are miracle cures.
Exactly,
because it provides optimism. Sometimes the truth isn't what you want to hear.
Yeah, I've always tried to keep it real, for lack of a better phrase once again. Because it's a tough blow, it's a tough blow. That's how I respond to most of my DMs. I'm like, dude, I feel you, man. I was there. It's a tough blow, but just know, like, you absolutely can look there. There'll be a time when you absolutely can look back on it and be like, damn, just how we were chatting back and forth before we kind of hit record there. And you look back and you think, what was I can't believe I was in that space. And that's actually one of the things that has driven me to start putting the content out there and keep going with it, was just, I won't forget how I felt, at my lowest point during that whole hair loss saga, but also how I dealt with it and how good that made me feel, and how much I learned about myself and other people. And I've just been like, right, well, I did it, there's nothing special about me. I just kind of changed the way I thought about a lot of things, or I put myself in uncomfortable situations to kind of realize the reality of certain situations. And if I can help other people do that and they can benefit from it, then, it's a win-win, it's a worthwhile, it's a worthy thing. And I think having, of course, I get messages from guys being like, thank you so much. You really helped me, or you just really opened my eyes to the situation, or it could be anything, man. Sometimes one of the biggest things I do, is think we talked about having the conversation, is I just listen as well. Like, I don't even have to respond to some people. It's amazing. One of the unfortunate things is because it's got quite big, I get so many messages that I know I just can no longer respond to all the people, the amount that I get in, I cannot get back to as many people. And another Gary V tip there, right, is when you got to always show as much love to the people that are taking the time out to reach you. And so for the longest time, I was like, I really had a lot of pride in the fact that I responded to everyone. Unfortunately, it gets unmanageable. But what's interesting now is I'm getting messages from guys who had maybe sent me a message 6 months ago, or even no, not a year ago. Let's say 6 months, right? And their initial message is, man, like, can you help me? I'm really struggling with this. And then the most recent message is like, I did it. They'll send me a little like before and after picture. They're like, man, like I've buzzed it off. Like, I just decided, you know what, I've had enough of this. I feel so much better. And it's just so interesting to see that by them reaching out to me and just putting it in a message, and just, like I said, that is them as close as they'll get to having a conversation about it, right?
Yeah.
They figured it out for themselves. They just needed to step away from the distractions and all those email adverts, like you said, take this and you can get your hair back and be super confident instantly. Like, they've stepped away from that. They've just sat down, jumped in my inbox, and almost talked themselves into, not talked themselves into it. I just mean they've figured it out, logically, just by running through it and putting their thoughts into a message to me. And they're like, oh, like, damn, like, this really does suck. Like, I really am struggling with this, rather than going about their life thinking like, oh man, I'm really struggling with this. But keeping it like at arm's distance, the struggle, you know, they haven't actually been like, damn, actually, you know what? Like, you know, really like felt it, you know, not to get too emotional and
No,
too
no, it
like
is
dark, but that's the
very deep.
reality of it. Yeah, it is deep. It is deep. And I'm not sure if you saw, but I put out that video where one time I went to that place one time with a colleague of mine, and I still had the messages. And I did that exact same thing, you know, a bit of back and forth. She was giving me a lot of good advice. She was like, it's about confidence, you know, easier said than done, but it really is, you know, how attractive you are and things like that is so much more than just your hair. But when that's the main problem that you're dealing with in terms of your looks, maybe, or one of the biggest ones, that's all you focus on, right? And it was the same thing. I was like, yeah, but I can't even grow a beard, and I can't, you know, I'm trying to get somewhere in life, and now I'm going to look like 90 years old, and I'm only 26. And I was just getting it all out there, you know, really going off on one.
Yeah.
And by the end of the conversation, I was just like, oh, I think I'm just going to Google how to accept this and kind of do my best. And I just figured it out for myself, you know? So that's, if there's anyone, for the people listening, if they're in that situation, seriously, like if you send a message to me or someone else, or even write it down, you know, or I did this thing where you know, have a conversation with yourself in the mirror even, but just get away from the distractions and all the sort of anxieties that you have, all the presumptions that you've got already. Like I just said then, I'm going to look 90 years old. I'm never going to be able to get a job again, you know, because those are the things that are flying around in your head when you're dealing with it. It's like, just try to put those things to one side and really ask yourself, you know, like, how are you feeling, and where do you think this is going? You know, where's the longevity in this sort of hair loss journey? And 9 times out of 10, you're going to figure it out for yourself, you know?
It's funny how similar we all are too, because everybody goes, I'm not going bald. Sorry, I think it's someone in my head. So it's definitely not hair. That's what's
Yeah.
Everybody goes, oh, I, you know, everybody thinks I'm going bald, and then they, you know, oh no, it's just the lighting. It's just the lighting. Or somebody says, oh, you're going bald there, and they're like, no, you know, I had a weird haircut. You know, first of all, it's denial. Then it kind of ventures into, you know, you get to the point where you're like, I'm going to cover it up. I'm going to shave it down a little bit more. Then you start searching good-looking bald men. You know, then you start searching, do women like bald men? I think we've all had that mutual journey, and then you go, okay, what are the cures? And then it gets so bad, you're like, what about hair transplants? And you always end up in Turkey. Everyone ends up in Turkey and then shaves it off.
My dog was barking then. Sorry, so I muted the mic. But
no, it's okay. That worked perfectly.
Good.
Yeah,
It did work perfectly.
I didn't even realize you were gone.
No, it's all good. Just shut up in a minute. But I forgot to mention that before we started, that I got a couple of dogs here.
That's okay. I used to have one. It was the same in my old house. She used to run through and pitter patter with her little paws all over the wooden floor.
On the floor.
So it was a nightmare. But
you're right. We all go through the same sort of, well, we touch on the same points, right? Because everyone's searching for these answers. But what is interesting is how I mentioned there, this Google search of like how to accept going bald. I think that was almost the exact thing that I typed into Google or YouTube. You know, how to accept balding, I think was probably it. And my YouTube channel and Baldcafe and the other social medias and website and whatnot are pretty much that expanded, you know, into every corner that someone might search for, because overall that's the message, is what I put out, is like, hey, this is how I think you can accept it and get past this. But it's almost like that cast 1,000 rods philosophy, right? I was like, people aren't just going to be searching for that, you know, they're going to be searching all different things. So I've obviously touched on those different topics, and it brings people into the central idea
best way to do it,
how to accept this. And I'm so thankful, man, that was the thing that I searched for, and not like, how do I stop this? How do I, you know, prevent this? Or how, you know, what's the cure? What's really the cure? You touched on, you said your dad was also, you know, bald, and mine too. I think that helped, because I you know, dads are role models, of course. And I was like, if there was a genuine cure, my dad would have had hair, you know, because I trust, you know, I trust his judgment and what he's done. And you know, and I was like, if there was genuinely something out there that was good, he would have used it. and he's got no hair. So that also did influence me, you know, having that side of it definitely did influence me in quite a positive way. Because I was like, well, he's turned out all right, you know, he's done all the things he wanted to do, you know, and
Isn't that the funny thing in all of this, is that we have prime examples of bald men that have succeeded in every industry, yet we go, I'm finished, I'm done. Yeah, like you've never heard of The Rock. Like, this guy's worth hundreds of millions, one of the most famous people on the planet, voted sexiest man like multiple times. You're like, what are we? And I know he's got giant muscles and stuff, but you're like, there's so many other examples of that in every industry.
And now that you mention that, I want to touch on one thing that I get a lot when I've done videos in the past that are like, you know, bold and short, it's over for you, which is a common thing that you know, people talk about, right? And a lot of the people that the argument is, and like you said, the reasoning in our heads when we're losing our hair is, I'm going to be bald, so I won't be successful in let's say any avenue, whether that's money, good relationships, whatever, right? Whatever you want to, however you define success. But it's like, right, I'm not going to be successful. Let's pick money as an example, right?
Yeah.
So all the people that I outlined there, and then the common snapback is, oh, but they're rich, so that's why they're successful. No, they have success or they have the money or whatever in spite of having no hair, right? It's not they're successful because of the money. It's like you're saying that, or, you know, a large portion of society saying, if you've got no hair, it's over, you know?
Yeah.
These people are a clear example of that, you know, of that not being legit, like you just said, right? And not even to that level of success, you know? We got prime examples, like you said, your dad, or uncles, maybe teachers, lecturers, other people that you work with. You mentioned another guy, you know, you said your mum was like, this dude, that guy's like incredibly good looking. The estate agent. You don't have to look far, you know, you don't have to look far to find these people. But it is very interesting, like you said, how it seems like for a lot of guys as well, and this is another message that I get quite a lot, when you're going through it, you feel like you're the only one, you know, it really does feel like that. Yeah. You're like, no one else is going bald. All my mates have got like class hair.
Especially when you're young as well. You know, if you lost your hair at 45, you'd be like, I'm just joining a popular group here. But when you lose it, I think mine first started showing signs of like 21. And I was thinking, how the fuck can I be the first out of my entire friends group to be losing it? Like, even if you were second, at least you could go, how did you deal with it? Or you can like go out together as the two eggs. Do you know what I mean? But when it's just you against the world, you're like, oh God, this isn't going to end too well.
Yeah. I think that's something that helps people on Baldcafe as well, is because obviously the world is a pretty big place, and a good thing about social media and YouTube and whatnot is you can access a lot of people, you know, in a very quick time.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the podcast episodes on there, the people that share their stories, or the live episodes, as I call them, where, you know, guys will literally take the leap like there and then in front of your eyes, as close as we can get. I wanted to build like a library, and I've described it like this before. I wanted to build like a library of, let's say, 100 people, where there will be someone when you come onto the channel that you can really relate to, whether it's through age, whether you live in the same place, appearance, you know, anything like that. There'll be something somewhere in a guy that you can kind of say, hey, he kind of looks like me, or, you know, and he's done it and he looks good. Like he looks awesome. And it just gives you that little bit of belief, like, okay, maybe I can do it then, you know, maybe this is actually something I can do and embrace, and I'll be absolutely fine, because he has. And that's been the inspiration as well for these new kind of like live segments on the channel.
They're great. I love them, especially when you put together like, oh, here's 100 or 200 men. Better bald than they did with hair. And the irony of it as well is I honestly, I've never seen a guy look worse bald than he did when he was receding or thinning. I think every single, like, there's not a guy on the planet that doesn't look good bald. I think everybody, and every woman I've ever spoken to goes, oh yeah, you look fine, but every guy looks good bald. I'm like, yeah, of course they do. Why have we ever worried?
It's it is really interesting. It is an interesting part of it, and I don't know how much you dive into in the world of like different colored peels and
Oh
attractiveness
yeah,
based on I don't know, brow length or ratio of lip to chin, and I don't know. I try to avoid that stuff because
yeah.
that's
Do you mean the red pill, blue pill,
yeah,
Chads, and
a black pill, and it's over if you've
yeah,
not got like I don't know 3.5 centimeter ears with half centimeter earlobes,
yeah.
approximately 80-degree angle. I mean, come on, guys.
I mean,
Like,
look at me. Look at the size of my ears. Might not show because they're tucked in. Yeah, they're tucked in because of the headphones. But I've got some really big ears, and
I just
I'm
yeah,
bald. And honestly, the day I shaved my head, I've never had more female attention in my life. It's madness.
yeah,
That
there's something about it. Yeah, and it's the thing is, it's like you can say it about anything. Like when people are saying, "Oh, but women don't." The big one is women don't like bald guys. I think that comes from a lot of guys who are in the space that we were at, where it's
yeah,
falling out, you're freaking out. Women don't like bald guys. You project that onto the internet wherever you can, in the comment sections, whatever. Women hate bald guys. And one, of course, we know that to not be true. But two, it's like you can say that about anything. Oh, women don't like gingers. Women
yeah,
don't like guys with long hair. Women don't like tall guys, like overly tall guys or overly short guys. Or oh, women don't like guys with big noses. Women don't like estate agents. Like, come on, like, do you know what I mean? You
yeah,
if you put so much emphasis into what women don't like all the time, and you're just automatically going to look at yourself and be like, oh no, like I've got that or I've got this, and you're just going to scrutinize yourself until you bash all the confidence that you ever had out of yourself.
And it's only
Um,
natural too. Like there's so many people on the planet. There are going to be some women that don't like bald guys, right? And
yeah,
one thing I've done is accepted that. Like you might meet a woman who's like, "No, I like a guy with hair," and you go, "Yeah, okay, fine, yeah." Like why?
yeah,
Like from a sales point of view, like when I used to do sales, if you don't want it, then I'll move on to the next call. And it's the same with the woman. It's like, okay, if you're not interested in bald guys, why would I force it? Why would I waste my time? And you
yeah.
just move on until there's one that does. And it's just a range. It's just a
Yeah.
range of women.
You it's good to be self-aware, but one of the things that I think a lot of people don't do, myself included, is give yourself enough credit for the things that you do have,
Yes.
because we've all got them. We've all got it in our personalities and in our looks, if you like. We've all got things that go well for us. I'll just give you a really quick example, just kind of to clarify what I'm talking about. I started hitting. My dad was good at running and athletics and stuff like that, right? Quite tall, quite lean, small frame, but like quick, good, built for endurance. And growing up, I was like, I did swimming, I did a bit of running, and I was brilliant at both of them, right? And this isn't to like, blow my
No,
own
no, go
trumpet, but
ahead.
it
Yeah, yeah.
just kind of explains. When I was about 16 years old, all my mates started smashing the gym, so I followed suit because it wasn't cool to run for 2 hours in the fastest time, right?
And be
That
thin. Yeah,
didn't be thin. That didn't
yeah,
look good, right? As great of an achievement as it was, and I could have really excelled in that, to be honest, if I'd have really applied myself to it. But no, I wanted to look big and beat my mates in an arm wrestle in the college like
yeah,
refectory or whatever. So I started hitting the gym too, and I was trying to lift big weights, and I had mates that were naturally like they were just like built way differently to me. They were strong, and I was just shoveling down the food, trying to like get massive, and it just isn't me. That just not isn't me. I'm just not going to be as big as my mate who's like just wrists the size of my bloody thighs.
yeah,
And I wasted a lot of time really trying to fight that, and being like, oh, I'm so skinny, I'm so this, I'm so weak. But actually, I had potential for other things, that I just wouldn't, not necessarily the running, even if you want to build muscle and things like that. I could have done so many great things if I'd have just been a little bit more self-aware and given myself credit for the things that I was actually good at or naturally like, built for. And that's not to say people shouldn't try new things or challenge themselves, but don't be focused on what you don't have. Like I was so focused that I didn't have 17.5-inch arms, right? So that it sounds ridiculous.
yeah.
I mean, that is ridiculous. I wasn't literally obsessed with that one thing. It's a good example. So I would be like beating myself up that I didn't have as big arms as my mates, but then, you know, they didn't have the ability to do things that I could do, you know. And it's just about being kinder to yourself, and really recognizing what you do have, you know. And it is quite a mind shift when you kind of do lean into your strengths.
I agree. On a kind of bridging off of that, I did a video very recently. I got a lot of shit for it, but I knew it was coming. And I think it's because of the same points that we discussed earlier about the defensive mindset. But I said that if you're going bold or you're short, you've hit the jackpot. And everybody went, how the fuck is that hitting the jackpot, etc. And I was like, because if you look at any leading industry, you know, the people at the top, somebody did send me a statistic saying the average CEO is like 6 foot, but that's just, you know, maybe that was done in a small study of people. I guarantee it wasn't everybody. It was the top companies. It was finance. It's different, right? But if you look around the world, people who are usually bold or short go, oh, I'm going to have to compensate in other areas. And they're less lazy. You know, they'll go out there and they'll try and accomplish more because, yeah, we realize that we maybe have a shortcoming of some sort. You know, as soon as my hair went, I was like, I'm going to just make more money than ever. And that's not the solution. You know, I could have said, okay, I'm going to get in the best shape. I actually try and do both. But, you know, I could have been like, I'm going to be the most well-read guy ever. I'm going to be the most intelligent, the most creative, the nice guy, the most caring. But, you know, I just think anybody who loses their hair or is short does overcompensate in other areas, and it ends up leading to a better life where they're actually more holistic than, let's use 2 examples. Let's say you've got a guy who's 6'4", real handsome, great genetics in his body, huge penis, but he's stupid, he's an idiot, he's lazy, sits around all day watching porn. You know, he's part of, you know, he commits domestic abuse cases. When he's with a woman, he hits her, etc. Now you've got this other guy who's short and bold, but he's dedicated, he's focused, he's motivated, he gets up early, you know, he doesn't go out and get drunk and get violent, etc. Like, which one is the woman going to pick? She's going to pick the short, bold guy every single time. And it wouldn't even be a question about it. Now, as a one-night stand, maybe the other guy, but as you get older, that becomes less and less frequent. And I think the short, bold guy in real life, the short, bold guy takes over. You know, we've got to get rid of this college, school mindset that guys have.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? And I think it might not even be hair loss or your height. I've been focused on hair loss, but sooner or later, something comes along, some form of adversity. It might even be a parent dying or a sibling or a partner or something that is going to kick your ass into gear. And the coast that you've had up to that point, you realize that's not forever, you know? And for a lot of guys that go bald, that hair loss is the first thing when they realize, oh shit, like you actually, not everything isn't just given to you, and life is not just plain sailing and easy. Like you actually have to work. It's weird. And compensate for me, compensate or overcompensate isn't the right word, but it's like, it's just a kick up the ass, you know. It's just like it kicks you into gear.
Well, like you rightly said, it's the first one you get, because if you're lucky enough, you won't lose people young. You know, they won't die in your early teens or late teens, early 20s. Hopefully nobody dies. Hopefully you don't lose your house, get divorced, etc. Right? Those things don't really happen. The first kind of sign of mortality or something going wrong is hair loss for a lot of guys.
Exactly. And that is a great thing that comes out of it. And I've touched on that in a few videos. A great thing that comes from it is just that realization, like, okay, this sucks, but I've gone past that. Like, I've dealt with that. Like, hey, there might be other things that come up that suck too, but let's just go for, you know, the things I've been putting off or the stuff that I have been lazy on or not worked at. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and do those things now, because it's weird. You just get this feeling of like, when you overcome it and when you move past that shitty stage of losing your hair, it is just genuinely that 2.0, the you 2.0, the new lease of life. It is difficult to like put like proper phrases or names on these things, but for guys that are listening and watching this, gonna also bold or whatever, you totally understand what we're talking about. Yeah. And it's a good thing that comes from this whole experience and this whole journey. And one of the things that you miss out on if you spend years and years and years trying to stop it or prevent it, or not even prevent it, you know, just not addressing it, you know.
Yeah, that's the right term, yeah.
And that's something that you miss out on if you don't kind of just go roll with it, you know. There was something else I really wanted to touch on, and it's completely escaped me.
I do this on every podcast.
It's linked to the same thing. You were talking about just the bold short guy. I think I was just going to say again, like hair loss for me was the first thing that was I kind of struggled with, you know, and really, like, I mean, genuinely struggled with.
Yeah, same.
You know, I did all right in school. You know, I was quite talkative. I like to think I was quite social. Had good relationships with a lot of the teachers, which had a lot of benefits, you know. And I did well in my exams and all things like that, you know, in relationships. And so I was fine, you know, it was cool. And I think that's why when I started losing my hair, I didn't know how to deal with it because I hadn't come up against something like that before. And I also think, again, that's why being on the other side of it, I look back and I am thankful for the experience because I'm no worse off for it. And I'm loads more self-aware and I've learned so much through doing it, you know, through that experience. It's separate. It sounds mental to guys that are losing their hair and they think, how on earth is this even remotely a good thing? You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's the battle that I have quite a lot of the time with my content and the message. And that's the battle that you had with your video when you were saying about the bold and short guys.
Yes, exactly the
That's
same
it.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So many different topics where I say stuff like what was the other one I used? Oh, when people say I want her to love me for my personality, she should love me for me. I'm like, your body, your success, you know, is a big part of you. And people don't want to hear that. They're like, no, I mean the natural me. And I'm like, but all the traits that you have create that you. You know, getting up at 5 a.m. for somebody who's absolutely jacked fitness wise isn't an accident. That comes from a personality trait. I was like, so that represents you. You know, there's so many different things like that can run forward. But one thing I was going to ask you is, are you genuinely happy then that you went bald? Like looking back, are you glad it happened? Because that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's going to be different for everyone, right? But for me, it's given me this opportunity, right? And for someone else, it might not be their start a YouTube channel talking about this thing,
Yeah.
but there will be another opportunity or there will be another realization. It might even just bring you closer with your partner, you know, or it might just allow you to deal with stressful situations better. But I can guarantee there will be something. You might have to look hard for it. It might come months or years down the line, but it will come, you know, and I genuinely would not change anything, mate, because
That's amazing.
before, you know, I was working and I was like studying different languages and I was kind of on a bit of a like self-development kick and whatnot. But like I said, I coasted. I was like, you know, gone for job interviews. I'd always got the job and, you know, I'd never really had any difficulty. And that isn't life. That's not how it works. You know, it's great up until a certain point, but you're guaranteed something's going to come up. And that's not to kind of scare people and have people be paranoid, but that's just the reality of it. You know, some people are luckier than others. And for me, yeah, it was just, to be honest with you, I haven't completely figured it out for myself. I think that's why I'm still doing this content. I'm still reading a lot about things like body dysmorphia, positive psychology, all these things that I'm really interested in because, you know, you're always trying to figure things out and learn more about your own experiences, right? But no, hand on heart, man, I wouldn't change it because I just don't see myself being in a better position than I am now for the sake of having hair, you know?
I agree. Like I worry because I considered the hair transplant for a little while because I thought, why not, right? Why not do it? It's so cheap now. Like you can get it for like 8,000, every hair replaced, back to normal. It's like, why not just make my life easier? But then I think, what would that do to me as a person? You know, will you start taking life for granted again? Will you start thinking, you know, things are easy again? Will you take your foot off the gas because you are sleeping with, you know, well, not necessarily sleeping with extra women. I don't think that's a fair point, but you know, it's easier because you can attract women just based on face. Do you know what I mean? You can just stand still, not say anything in a club, and you're one of those guys that a woman can walk up to and talk to. Whereas you're gonna put in less effort because you are that, I don't want to say it, but that Chad that those guys talk about. Like, I'm not saying I would be, but a lot of guys would stay away from that kind of hair transplant thing. And
it's interesting, you know. I think people are making a lot of money. All money is almost made on solutions, right? You know, I've got this solution for this problem, literally everything. And it is interesting because we just want easy solutions for everything, don't we? I mean, let's just say the fitness industry, as a good example. We all want the the cheapest, the least amount of effort workouts, and let me eat what I want for the best body I can possibly get. Everyone wants that, but there's a line where it's no longer reality. You can't just do less and less and less and eat more and more and more crap and get more and more results. Like that's just not how it works. And I don't know. It's like, I wonder if when you buy into those things, every time something difficult comes along, say for example, right, I'm dieting, I've reached a certain point, but if I want to go further, things are going to have to get tougher. But if I've now got someone telling me, hey, you can just keep eating those cookies and that Subway, and hey, you get those extra cookies, chill. If I always default to that way of thinking, where does that take me? Like, where do I make any progress? Or do you know what I mean? I know I'm getting a bit away from, I'm getting a bit out there with the thoughts.
No. Honestly, I was with you right there.
Yeah.
That was such a good point. I've never actually thought of that before, that whenever problems come up, people use money to
the easy solution. We just want the easiest solutions rather than really like relying on ourselves. Maybe is the point I'm trying to make.
Like the amount of women that get ass transplants or butt injections rather than going and doing the squats in the gym, which would get the same results. It just takes longer and it's a lot harder to do. Yeah, I think a lot of guys are doing it too. Like 10-minute abs. You're like, that's not how it works.
No. I was going to use the ab example.
Yeah.
It was 10-minute abs. Then it was like, there's the joke, isn't there? 7-minute abs. Oh, I'm going to do 6-minute abs. Yeah. Yeah. I know it's and that's where I kind of sat with the hair loss cures, so to speak. I just kind of thought, where does this road take me if I go down that road? Because if you want the most success, it's not just you do this, even with a hair transplant, you still have to take the other stuff and have the routine. I was like, where does it end? I couldn't see the end point for that road. And I'd have to subscribe and I'd have to rely. I didn't want to be reliant on those external things to feel good, because it's a bit like, I don't know, my analogy is getting a bit wild, but say your podcast, right? And you need to make good content and to send out good messages. You could do it with this, realistically, and a voice recorder. Yeah. But say, for example, you just spent like $4,000 on setting up your studio there, and someone in another country that's got like an epic story to tell that would benefit thousands of people is like, hey man, come and meet me next Tuesday. We're going to do this podcast. That's all we can do. And you're like, oh, I'm not going to have my epic $5,000 podcast set up, so I can't do that.
Yeah.
It's like you're reliant on that for the things you want to achieve and whatnot. And I just didn't want to be reliant on stuff. I wanted to be more resilient and more minimalist. I'm getting really wild with these analogies.
No, I do. I agree with you 100%.
I just wanted to rely on myself, on myself.
There's something really important about stripping it all down and still being the true you. Like I see guys out there who they're out partying, they're drinking, they're with a bunch of women, they're having time of their life, and you can see that used to be you. And I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, with no disrespect, you don't have much more than a good set of hair. Do you know what I mean? And you're looking, you're thinking, if your hair went off, you would pretty much crumble as a person, because they haven't worked on all the other areas of their life. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, that whole setup that you currently have is so fragile. It's relying on your youth. Like the second that goes, you sit there and you go, God, I haven't actually taken care of my diet or my fitness for 2-3 years. Or they look in the mirror and they go, God, I haven't taken care of my skin for X amount of years, because they had the hair, because they had the youth. And you see, I think sometimes that's why guys get hit by baldness like a ton of bricks, because they are so dependent on hair, youth, using it as like a cover up for other things that aren't, potentially in place. And I just think when you strip everything back, you shave it off, you don't buy a fucking Ferrari to show up to your school reunion in. Do you know what I mean? When you strip it all back and you can have that true confidence. There's an old quote that I love, an old African proverb, which is, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. And I think that just sums up what boldness is completely.
Yes, yeah. I was just thinking of the whole like Dutch courage thing when you were talking about, when you're like really, you want to like, have a good time and talk to different people and have that confidence, but you're like, oh, I just need a few more drinks, or, and then it finally comes out. But what about when you're in those situations where it's not socially acceptable to be drinking alcohol at like, I don't know, half
Work.
nine? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, not being reliant on things, I think is a part of the journey. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's so important to just build like a more of a holistic man. To say I'm going bold, but I'm going to learn 3 languages. Just little things like that, and just say, okay, I'm going to rely more on me as a person than what is on the outer surface.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
keep progressing. Keep find things that you can keep moving upwards in, rather than, because the whole hair thing is, you're always playing catch up. You're going to be
Yeah.
constantly playing catch up, and it's only going to go one way. You can get more surgeries, but even those are going to run out. I think the most I've ever heard is 10 hair transplants, right? But eventually that will also run out. It's not infinite. And so you're always playing, like I said, you're always playing catch up. You're always trying to fight something, rather than putting those attention on things that you can build on, and move forward in. Once that focus kind of changes, it's a very different story.
What age were you when you started to first notice signs of it falling out?
This is interesting. So I say 25, 26 when I first recorded that video. I recorded a video and I picked someone up off the floor, and I saw that the hair around the crown was thin. Oh, it was like a pink color. And it's so weird looking back, because I was like, you can barely even see it, but I knew instantly. I was like, what is that? That's not right. So that was when I really noticed it. But interestingly, when I must have been about 15, maybe like 14, 15. And I had, like a crew cut sort of style haircut. And every time I wash my hair, we used to have this little like thing in the plug to, stop hair and whatnot just hair going down the sinkhole. And I used to look at it, I was like, that is quite a lot of hair. That is, every time I wash my hair, I think I probably wash it like every other day or every day. And I'd be like, that is a lot of hair. And I remember asking this lady that cut my hair when I was a kid, and I said, like, I'm really worried about my hair falling out. And of course she was like, no, we lose up to like 100 hairs a day. Like, it's fine. Like, you'll be fine. And, but when I got my dad on my podcast, and had a conversation with him, he actually, I didn't even bring that up. I just said, oh, what did I say? I was like, I can't remember the question I asked him, but I said like, oh, did you ever think this would happen, or whatever? Did you ever think I was going to go bald, that you were bald? And he was like, it was funny because when you're about, and I didn't mention the hair thing, but he said it was funny when you were about 15, I used, and being a teenager, I didn't really clean up after myself much. He was like, after you'd had a shower, if I ever went in there, I would see that there was quite a lot of hair in the shower. I was like, and I mentioned it to your mum, but I didn't say anything to you because I didn't want to freak you out. So I think that must have been the time when it started, but it must have been so slow to progress, because it was only 10 years on.
They say it takes half of your hairs to go for you to first notice it.
Apparently, yeah. That was sense. A Derek, more plates, more dates gave that one to me, that idea. That YouTube guy. But yeah, half of it's gone before you notice. Yeah. And then when you do, it's like loads is gone. And then after that, I noticed small things like, when I really started playing around with it, I was like, damn it, the hair around the crown here is like really thinning out. Like it just feels thin, it feels wispy. And the heat lamps in the bathrooms where I was living were like super hot on the crown of my head. And I tried to deny it for maybe a couple of weeks. I was taking selfies and videos of the top of my hair all the time. I was looking at it, and I'd do it in like different lights, and I'd almost like try and kid myself, like, no, it's not really going, and then I'd be like, no, it really is going,
Taking pictures in the dark and being like, it looks fine. That's how it will look in a club, so I'll be okay. It's
exactly.
Just, when are you going to get a light like that above your head? It's like every day when you're outside.
Exactly.
Stop being stupid.
And so that's when I first noticed like the hair going.
Yeah, it takes a bit of bravery, doesn't it? Mine was completely different, and I struggled quite a lot because I went through a ton of stress and had like really thick, solid hair. hairdresser just would be like, you'll never go bald, you'll never lose it. And I didn't really show any signs. Like friends of mine that had kind of receding bits here. There was one friend, actually, to be fair, I said I was the first one, but there was actually a friend that had a lot of hair loss. And he said, you're so lucky. He was like, you'll never lose yours. Like yours hasn't flinched since you were like 16. It's like, yes, come on, perfect. Then I went through a ton of stress. And literally overnight, I'd wake up upside down in my bed, feet tangled in the curtains, pillows and quilts all thrown on the floor because of the stress. And I got this like straight line of missing hair straight through here. And it was something called Telogen Effluvium, which later turned into chronic Telogen Effluvium because it went on so long. And I went to personally train. I was doing personal training, went to train this client, this woman. And she just kind of like double took, looked at me and said, Chris, where's your hair gone? Like, did you shave it down the middle? She was like, what? Who did that to you? And I was like, oh, no, I don't know what's going on. It's nothing. And it was so greasy. Like I got home and I'd shampoo the whole lot and it was dry. And within probably 15 minutes, I'd run my hands through it and it was greasy. And every hair that fell out had a big white sebum bulb on the bottom.
Right, yeah.
And it happened over 2 weeks. Literally, it went from thickest hair you've ever seen to just this crappy wispy hair. And at the time it made it worse because I'd just gone through a breakup with this girl that I actually initiated the breakup, right? But then she went off with someone else much more successful than me within days. So I was like, okay, well, that must have been getting set up for a while. Okay, fair enough. So that hurt a little bit. And then when you see that your hair had all fallen out as well from all the stress that was happening at the time, and I had to go and drop stuff off at her house, and I was just panicking and nervous and stuff like that. And it was all wispy, and I was like, oh, so she's upgraded. I've gone the other way. And it just I think it made the bold journey like 4 years longer than it should have been. Whereas, if I had just focused on me, it would have taken it would have been a lot quicker. But I just went on this ultimate march to just try and get that hair back. I was always Telogen Effluvium, it will come back. And I was getting told it will come back, but I don't think that helped.
No.
And I think now that I'm at terms with it, where I'm like, I think it's gone forever, or I'm pretty sure it's gone forever. If somebody said to me, what percentage, I'd be like 99.9, maybe 100% now. It's made me feel so good. I'm so relaxed because I'm like, well, this is me for the rest of my life. I'm happy with the way I look. You tick the 2 boxes, don't you? You go, do I look? I'll shave it off. Do I look stupid? No. Okay, tick. Can I still get women? Yes, tick. Okay, life's fine. Let's move on. Or men, whatever you're into, right? And I think if you tick those 2 boxes, I don't know what other hurdle there is.
Yeah, and there's loads of things like we touched on quickly on like, the worries, like, am I going to get the job I want? That's another big one. But once you go for it and you get, are people going to make negative comments all the time and make jokes about it? But once you actually get out there and you realize that those things don't happen, that's when you really like those are the things that make you confident in yourself and in the new look and allow you to just move on from it totally. I agree with that. The stress thing, I just want to touch on that quickly. We unfortunately, man, I'm going to have to wrap it up. In a minute. But I actually experienced about the same time as I noticed that, or just before, behind my ear, a massive patch of hair about same size as, I don't know, this big. I don't know how to describe it. An egg-sized patch.
Yeah, I've seen this
behind my ear. And that was, I think they call it alopecia areata, like a patch of where the hair should be completely gone, completely bald. And I didn't notice that falling out because obviously the hair there was shaved. That, I used to have it like grade 1 or whatever. And it was my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, but my girlfriend, she was like, you got no hair behind your ear. And I was just like, but if you pull your ear down now, like obviously there's a bit where there's no hair there anyway.
Yeah, you'd assume it was that bit.
Yeah. So I was like, well, yeah, everyone's got that. Like, what are you talking about? And then the guy that was cutting my hair, it also said the same thing. He was like, oh, where's the hair here? I was like, it's nothing. And then, she took a picture of it and I couldn't believe it. I've got a picture somewhere. I think it's on my YouTube channel somewhere. And I was researching that, and that is supposedly also caused by stress. And I do wonder, I've always wondered if the situation that I was in, I was living out in China at the time when my hair started falling out, right? A completely different environment to what I was ever used to, just people crammed in, constant noise, constant light. I was working, I was studying, I said I was on this self-development thing, but I don't know about yourself, but a negative aspect of the whole, like when you get obsessed with the self-development thing, is like constantly beating yourself up that you're not successful yet. And you're not this mega entrepreneur. And is this my life purpose? Is this what I want to be doing? And why aren't I investing in property? And just crazy things. That's probably a conversation for another day, because I could go on for another 2 hours on that stuff, man. But it's like, I really do wonder if stress, it does bring it on faster. You said you lost yours before your dad. I think mine was about the same time, but it was so crazy when I first went to China. And for the first 2 years there, my hairline was solid. Everything was solid. I was good as gold. Even mentioning the 14, 15, but never noticed anything, And it was though when I moved to a new city, like 30 million people, I just started learning Chinese, and I wasn't earning enough money, and I'd got my girlfriend, and, a lot of pressure in that as well, of course, that comes with, trying to have a successful relationship. And, oh man, it was like mental, I could never switch off. And I do wonder, I've always wondered, did that bring it on a lot sooner than it would have if I was, out in the countryside somewhere on my laptop making millions and sipping, coconut water and
see, I think that's why
else.
so many bald guys are successful and rich, though, because I think they sacrifice their hair for money.
I
honestly do.
Yeah.
I think the stress of earning more money and becoming successful and wanting to be something more actually gets rid of it. I think that's why it happens so often. But it's strange that you said moving to China. We'll wrap it up, but moving to China actually got rid of it, because for me, when I moved to London, I felt more at ease because I didn't know anybody.
Really?
Yeah, I grew up in a small town. And then still now, when I come back to the small town, I'm like, oh, these people remember me with hair. If I bump into them, I'm going to have to explain quickly what happened. You're like, why am I justifying it? Why does it matter? And then you meet these people and you go, I just buzzed it off. It was going bald. I got fed up. And they go, oh, okay. Like, it's not a problem, But I did feel more at ease in London, because I was like, these people only have ever seen me like this. And this is my new identity here.
No, I think you're actually right there, because I would be lying if I didn't say that. Maybe not for a long time, but maybe when I was out there, because I think a lot of the people that I went to school with and things like that I've actually got messages from them like, hey, is this you? Like on the YouTube channel. And they're like, what the hell is this? But I thought like, if I see people and they see me like this, are they going to be like, what is that about? But it's actually not the hair. It's usually the beard. They're like, what's with the massive beard? I get that one quite a lot.
I went out to play football once, and there was the other team stood there. I knew one of the guys, and we were just back and forth in each other. And I made a funny joke, and I thought, I've won this one. And then his teammate was like, at least my head isn't on upside down. I was like, because I had a big beard like yours at the time. I was like, that was a good one.
A classic,
I had to suck that up, because I was still going through the shaving phase where I was going down the grade. So I was like, fuck, that one hurt.
Yeah, that's the go-to for a lot of people. But there's always a comeback, but that's never a healthy road, because like we were talking about earlier. But no, dude, I don't know if they've got any closing questions that I haven't answered or anything like that.
No, I think because we're both limited on time today, I think it'd be good to do a part 2, part 3. Honestly, I think the feedback we'll get on this would be brilliant. If I can come on your podcast, if you ever get time and stuff, I'm sure we can continue these discussions on, and like you said earlier, it doesn't even have to be about hair loss. I'm sure we can get on to stuff that men do as well, like men's lifestyle, because that's very relevant to me and what I do. So if I get you on next time, I think we can maybe bridge over and do the two together.
That'd be good.
I don't think there's any rush. We've got years to get these podcasts out there.
No, man. Yeah, that sounds absolutely good. Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed it. I think we can relate on a lot of topics, and we seem 100%. To have very similar goals and things like that in terms of what we want to do. And obviously, our content is just about bettering the lives and just kind of changing perspectives, because there's a lot of men, a lot of people out there beating themselves up and kind of getting in their own sort of negative space. So anything we can conversation, again, it comes back to having these conversations, doesn't it? I think it's just,
that's what I was going to say.
Important just to talk about this stuff, and wherever it goes, man. I think there's a lot of room for expansion.
I agree, because I've got a friend who's going through it right now, and I was like, guys, just don't talk about this shit. They don't talk about feelings being hurt, women feeling negative, nervousness, anxiety, depression, which I went through myself, which was very much related to this as well. And when I talk to stuff like that to him, he's like, wow, like nobody ever talks to me about this sort of stuff. And I was like, I had nobody to turn to either. If I had a channel like First Man or Baldcafe, would have been a lot easier, wouldn't it? It would have been far, far easier.
Exactly. No, you're dead right. You're dead right. I had someone reach out to me today in the DMs, and he said he's tried to, even if they do reach out, often the responses they get it's difficult to know, like, oh, is that a good response? Or, you know, and you even overthink those sometimes. I
Yeah.
know guys that mention to their girlfriends, like, oh, I think I'm going to shave it off. You know, I don't really like this hair anymore. And then my girlfriend might be like, yeah, just do it. And then they're like, oh, wait, does that mean she doesn't care? Or does that mean, with that such a quick response, does that mean if I do it, she's just going to like leave me? She's already decided, like, nah, I'm out, you know? And so she just do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's like, you know, when you get in here and you start really overplaying it, it's yeah, it can get complicated. But no, dude, it's been a pleasure. Been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Same. I was really excited about this. I've got like 4 or 5 podcasts this week. I was buzzing for this one because I feel like I can really be a part of it rather than somebody who knows a lot more about a certain subject than me teaching me. So I thought this would be a great discussion. It kind of felt like it was very two-way rather than, you know, somebody educating me. So it's been great. But yeah, you're a fantastic guy. I think what you're doing is brilliant. Your channel is fantastic. I encourage everybody to go and check it out, especially on YouTube, because if you are going bold, you can spend a whole night or two or a whole week of just going through those videos and then coming out the other side and being like, I'm not alone, which I think is the most important thing to take from this.
Definitely. Dude, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, buddy. I'll let you shoot off. Speak to you soon.
Yeah, you got email. We're on Instagram. So just, hit me up and we'll get something else organized. All right.
Cheers, buddy.